this is going to be a continuation of our last lecture, right? I believe in the last lecture, we built a very simple Angular JS application that was able to go out and retrieve data from a website, right? Let me run that and see where we are. So let's run that. I think it's this one, right? And this one, we were able to type in the name of a movie. Go and I believe it was able to fetch content. There it is, right? So we have Titanic, the title of the movie, a short plot, and then I believe did we get to? Oh yeah, we did get to this, right? Where we can do all sorts of store the information, saying that this is a favorite. Did we do this part? Oh, we didn't do that part, right? So let's see. Let's continue and finish this up, right? And then change it a little bit, right? So for instance, one of the things that we would like to change is that there are two features here in this page, correct? One of the features is that you can search and see the search results. That's one of the features, correct? And that's one of the features that I would expect from whatever project you're considering building for this course. I would hope that one of the features would be that you can search through some data set. Okay. Also, another feature here is that we're bookmarking. Right? We're remembering something from that result set. Right. So, for instance, we bookmark these 4 movies, and then if we search for some other movies, we can bookmark some more. Right, maybe this one, that one, and that one. And notice that now I've bookmarked 7 movies in total, right? So we're bookmarking. Typically, this would go and be stored in our local database, right? So that when we come back tomorrow and we log in, it would show in our profile page, perhaps. Yes, this is information pertaining to us. Yes, whereas the search might be public. Anybody can search, correct? But not everybody could bookmark. Only those that are logged in and know who you are, then you could bookmark, correct? And you would see your favorites in your profile, right, after you log in. Make sense? But notice that there would be a public portion of the website, and there would be a private portion of the website, correct? So these are 2 separate features. One of them is public, one of them is private, and they should live in separate pages. Make sense? Right. So basically, we would like to separate these into separate pages where and you'd like to be able to navigate between these pages. Right. Sometimes you like to search. Sometimes you want to go to your profile and see your content. Maybe you want to. How about details? Maybe like if I click on one of these movies, I would like this to navigate to perhaps to a details page, right, where it shows me the director, the actors. Any reviews. So that'd be a 3rd page, right? We're talking about 3 different features, and presumably with 3 dedicated pages, correct? Up to this point, we've been doing everything in a single page, right? Everything in a single page. And you might think, well, isn't this a single page application all it's about, right? Having everything in a single page? Well, not quite. What we mean by this being a single page is that the page that was downloaded is page 010.html, correct? And that and this page presumably is never going to reload. It's always going to stay with us. And but we might show certain things at certain times, right? And perhaps we might only show favorites if we're in our profiles. We might only show the search and search results were in our home page. We might show only the details page when we go to a details page, right? And we can strategically show and hide different things, different portions of this HTML document, and give the functionality of navigation, but without actually refreshing the page. Okay, so how would we do that? For instance, one of the things that we might want to do is that these favorites should not show unless there is a favorite, correct? So we would like to logically or programmatically show or hide different things, right? For instance, we might want to do something like this. Let's copy and paste this. Let's start something new. So here's 11. Let me stop this. So 0, 11 with 0, 11. So for instance, here's the add to favorites, right? And we're adding to the favorites. There it is, right? And the website or the HTML is showing it, right? Where is it showing it? It's showing it here, right? There it is, favorites, and then the table. We could strategically not show favorites until there are actual favorites, right? Right? And then we could say something like this. We could say, if you put this in a div, right? Put this whole thing in a div. Put this whole thing in a div and say only show this, and you show only show if favorites. That's an array. If the length is greater than 0, right? If the length is greater than 0, then show this. Otherwise, don't even show it, right? If we look at the code, initially the array is 0, so the length is 0, correct? The length is 0 initially. So that section of favorites should not even show, right? Because the length is 0 at first, right? So let's navigate to 11. Notice that favorites is not there. See that? Favorites is not there until I actually start adding something to my favorites. All right, so if I add to a favorite, now notice that favorites comes up, correct? So what we're showing here is that we have the ability to show or hide different portions of the page strategically, right? Programmatically, we can decide show this or show that, correct? And that is how we're going to be able to give the functionality of navigation, right? What we're going to do is break up this one single page into several smaller pages and show one or the other depending on something that looks like navigation, which it is. I mean, we are providing the functionality of navigation, but without actually navigating to a different page. We're staying in the same page, right? But we're showing one thing or another depending on what we want to show. Okay, that makes sense? Ever still with me? All right. Okay, so let's rebuild this. Let's rebuild this. Actually, I'm going to start brand new. I'm going to create a brand new directory, and I'm going to call it ng routing. ng for Angular. Okay, and routing is the feature, the mechanism by which we can provide the functionality of navigation. Okay, the normal navigation that we are familiar with is just using an anchor, right? You just have an anchor and you point to a page, correct? You click on that anchor and it navigates to that page, correct? That's a classical navigation that we're familiar with, correct? Well, we're not going to do that. Right? We're going to do something that looks like it's doing that, but it's not really. Right? So let's start off. So let's do ng routing. Let's start off with an HTML page. Actually, I probably want to copy a lot of what we had originally. Let's see. Let's copy this one and that one. Let's copy that. And let's just paste it under routing. So let's paste that. There we go. Right? And let me just close that. But I'm going to rename this because this is going to be the first in our set of experiments. And this is pointing. I'm going to keep it on the same directory. Let's see if this still works. So this is under directory. What is it under ng Angular /001.html? Nope, that didn't work. ng routing, right? ng routing. Okay, there it is. Okay. So let me open that up. Let me rename this. Rename the title. It says that we are talking about Angular routing. It's the same application. We're just going to call it the same. That's fine. H1, I'm going to say that this is Angular routing. Okay. All right. So what we want to do is something like this, right? We want to have several pages, basically, right? We want to have dedicated pages for different portions of the application, correct? And I'm going to put them under a directory called pages. Let's say pages. And under there, I want to have at least 3 pages. I want to have maybe a home page, home.html, right? Maybe with just h1 says home. Okay. Maybe I want to have another one, perhaps one that allows us to look at my profile, right? That's my private page that would show me maybe my favorite movies, right? If I log in, I can see my profile. And maybe another page that would allow me to see the details of a particular movie. So I'll call that details. Okay, so I'm going to have this H1 details. Home says home, and profile also says home. Let's change that to profiles. Right. So how would we normally do this? Well, we would normally have perhaps from here you would have some kind of navigational mechanism, right, where we could do something like this, right? We could say, you know, href home.html, right, and we have maybe home like this. Correct? That's the classical way of doing this. Oops. Right. So this one maybe is well, the details doesn't make sense to have it because the details would be from where? From a particular movie, right? It would be the details of a particular movie. It make no sense to navigate to details without knowing what movie, right? All right. So we're not going to navigate to that. And this would be the profile. Profile. So this would be the classical way, right? And where do these pages live? Oops. What do they call this? It should be called profile, right? Profile. And these pages live where? They live under the pages directory. So this should be really, it should really be pages slash, right? And pages slash. Right? So if I click on home, it navigates to home, right? If I click on profile, it navigates to profile. Yes? This is a classical way of navigating, right? You actually load an entire different document. Correct? Right? We're not going to do that, right? But we want the same. We do want the same functionality, though. You know, being able to split our application into separate pieces, right? So actually, I would want that home would be my default, right? That's what I would want, right? When I come to 001, I would want the content of home to show up here. Right? And then be able to navigate between home and profile and whatnot, right? That's what I would want. So let's see how we would do that. In Angular, the way you do that in Angular is to follow a design pattern called the model view controller pattern, which is somewhat like this. Let's look at that a little bit. In the classical model, right, of having a page explicitly be aware of other pages. This is what's happening, right? This page, 001 HTML, is aware of pages home HTML and profile HTML. Yes? Right? And the navigation control is where? It's right here, right? This says, if I click on home, I navigate here. Right, so the controlling mechanism of navigation is lives where? It lives in the page, correct? Right? And in this model, you would have something like this. If you have page 1, right, and you have page 2 and have page 3, you want to be able to navigate amongst each other, right? So from 1, you want to be able to go to the other 2, right? From 2, you want to be able to go to the other 2. And from 3, you want to be able to navigate to the other 2, right? If you have, in general, if you have, n pages, you end up having something like this, right? Again, this one goes like that, like that, like that, like that, like that, right? Where everybody is aware of everybody, okay? And this is a maintenance nightmare, okay? If ever you want to change the navigational logic, you have to visit every single page. Well, maybe not every single page, but lots of pages, right? If you want to insert a page in between, or you want to move pages to a different directory, or you want to move something, this is a nightmare, right? That you have to go and visit each single page. So instead of doing this, instead of pages being aware of other pages, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this. We're going to remove this. We'll remove that, and instead we're gonna centralize that, the mechanism, right? The mechanism of navigation, we're gonna centralize it into a single place where we can maintain it in one single file, as opposed to spreading it across n files. Make sense, right? So in this model, you have a central controller, or maybe like a dispatcher, right? A dispatcher where each page notifies the dispatcher on what the user clicked. The user clicked on home. Where is that? I have no idea where that is, right? I am just notifying you that this is the intent of the user. But the page itself has no idea where home lives. But the controller does. The controller says, it's that one, right? So it sends you over to home, okay? And the controller typically has either inside or as a separate file, maybe could be XML, could be JSON, or could be some configuration file, where it's a single maintenance point. You only maintain it in a single place, right? Where you have some kind of table that says if you are in 1, right, and you clicked A, you navigate to B, right? Correct. You navigate to 2. So if you go 1 and you click on A, you go to 2. Or if you're in 1 and you click on B, you go to 3. So if you click on B, you navigate to 3. It is the controller who maintains this if else control, right? And you can have nice tools where maybe you can drag and drop, right? You can maybe do lines, right? You can have a nice UI that you can maintain this in a single place. Make sense? Right? So Angular uses this model, right? The centralized routing controller is called. The centralized routing controller. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right, so that's what we're going to use. We're going to use now. In that model, okay, we're going to have a single page. We're going to have the single page, right? This is 001 HTML, right? If we want several pages, 001 HTML is it's not going to actually provide any content. The content lives elsewhere, right? It lives in home HTML. It lives in where? In profile. It lives in details.html, right? That's where the content lives, correct? What our 001 HTML, the only thing it's going to do is going to provide a placeholder where we can load these documents dynamically into a 001 HTML. We can suck them in, right, and draw them in here. Remember, we're never going to reload 001 HTML, right? We're never going to actually navigate to home.html, right? But we do want to show the content, right? We want to show the content of this or that or the other, depending on what we click. So what we're going to do is that we're going to dynamically bring in the content of these other HTMLs, and we're going to insert them into this shell, into the shell. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So in this model, there is absolutely no content. There's nothing here. Actually, I don't want to just throw it away. Well, actually, we do have it in the other page, right? We have it in the previous example. So if we ever want to bring it back. Okay, it's a container. It's an engine controller, not even a controller. There is no controller. That's it, right? There is nothing. What we're going to do is going to say we're going to suck everything into here. Right? We're going to show everything in here. First, we need that centralized controller. We need this centralized controller. That centralized controller has been split off into a separate JavaScript file. Okay, so it's not inside of AngularJS. It's inside of some other JavaScript, which we need to download. I think I downloaded it. Nevertheless, let me show you where you download it. If you go to AngularJS, this is where we had downloaded AngularJS initially, yes? Right? So if you click on download and you go, so this would download again just AngularJS, correct? But instead we want another module, browse additional modules. The one we want, it's this one over here, route. See that? Angular route. That is the centralized routing controller, right? We download that Angular route, Angular main, and map. I think I downloaded it already, and I think I put it in here in the JS. There it is. Yes, I did download it. There it is. It's there. Okay, I downloaded it yesterday. We just have to include it in our application. We need to include it, right? So let's do that. So here's script. And wait, what? Slash dot? That's weird. Okay. Dot slash dot slash dot slash JS, then Angular, and we want route. That one. There it is. We loaded it. This contains the centralized routing controller. Okay? Everybody okay with me? Everybody still with me? Okay. And 001JS, right? And that's the application, right? The application. So 001 presumably has the application in there. Is this the right place? Yes. Experiment and yes. So yeah, there it is. The declaration. There is no controller. There is no controller. So I'm just going to comment this out for a second. We might need what's in there. All right. We have that. We loaded the controller. And what's going to happen here is that controller is going to include or include the content of either home or profile or details.html into this div. And the way we do that, the way we tell it is we say that this is going to be our view, right? Suck everything into this view, right? Which is currently empty, right? You see that it's empty, has nothing in there, but it will dynamically either show home or show details or show profile on demand. Correct? Right? Let's do that. Right. So the way so we loaded the library. Here's the library. We now have to tell our application that it's not a standalone module. It depends on another module. Right? The other module is where the centralized controller lives, and that controller is called ng route. I think it's called ng route. Let me see. AngularJS routing. Oops, too big. Blah, 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 template. ngView, yeah, we did that. ngRoute, yeah, it is ngRoute. Yep. And then we have to provide for this router, we need to configure it and say, if you're in a particular file and somebody clicks on something, then you will navigate somewhere else. Right? We need to tell it. Okay. We need to give it the configuration. We have to configure that controller, and the way you configure it is as follows. Right. Here's an example of the configuration. I'm just going to copy it. Right. You say app. Right. Your application. Right. Your application. I want to configure. I want to say I am configuring the route provider, right, which is our centralized routing controller, right, that says if you want to go to the home, right, if they click on some home, right, if any page says that they want to go home, right, I will navigate or I will include the home page. The home page. Right now, we don't have a controller. If they click on profile, I will take them to pages profile. So it is the controller who knows where the HTML pages are, right? But the pages themselves don't know. You see that? Right? The only thing that a page might say is, hey, I want to go home. Right? Where is home? I don't know. The centralized controller knows. You see that? So that, right? So say home is here, right? And from any page, if they want to go home, instead of going directly home, right? Instead of going this way, right? Which is the classical navigation, right? Instead, they go to the controller and say home to the controller. Right? If 2 wants to go home, they tell the controller, I want to go home. Or, yeah, I want to go home, right? Anybody that says they want to go home, the controller says, I know where home is. It's that one. Make sense? Right? So this is where it's centralized. This says, if anybody says they want to go home, this is the page that I will show them. If anybody says that they want to go to the profile, this is the page that I'm going to show them. Everybody okay? Make sense? Right. So this is instead of each page knowing where which every other page lives, right? And finally, let's see, we need one more. Details. Is that where the pages live? Under pages? Under pages, yeah. Okay. And here's otherwise. Otherwise, it means that if you come to me with some garbage, you know, like XYZ, right? And you're telling me to go somewhere I don't know where it is. I'm going to default to somewhere. You know, maybe I could go to a 404 page, right, or unknown page or something, right? I could go to an error page or something, right? Over here, I'm just going to say if you ask me to go somewhere I don't know, I'm just going to go home. Okay, this is the otherwise, the default. Everybody okay? Right. Now, if we go to home, right? Instead of the classical way of doing this would be to have href, right? I want to go to profile, right? This is a typical way of doing it, right? This is what you would normally do. Instead of doing this, right? So this would be maybe home details. So this would be the classical way of doing it. Instead of doing this, what we're going to do is notify the controller. So instead of doing this, which works, right? Right. What would happen? Every page would have to have this, right? So in the profiles, you would also have something like this, right? And in details, you would also have something. Right. So that if you go home, right, you can navigate to profiles, details, or home, right? From anywhere you can get to anybody else. Classical way of doing it. So instead, what we're going to do is that home is going to say the way we're going to notify is doing a /home. That's how we notify the controller. That's how we notify the controller. Or #profile. or hash details. Details. Right? And we're going to copy all this into each one of them. Okay, so now we're not going directly to the page. Instead, we're notifying the centralized controller, right? What is it doing? It's using the hash. Anybody know what the hash is? In HTML, hashes allow you to jump, right? Allow you to jump to locations in the same document, right? Hashes for quite a while, well, they still are, were used to create things like this, like table of contents, right? Where you could have, at the top, a table of contents, right? And then several sections, right? So section 1, 2, 3, right? And then you can create these hashes. We could say A, right? And you say href, right? H1, right? Or 2 or 3, right? Each one of these will be different, and this will allow you to click over here and jump to sections in the same page, right? So the functionality of hashes, right? It has been supported in browsers since the beginning, right? So this mechanism of using hashes to jump around in different sections of a document, has been supported for a while. What Angular does is that it takes that feature, of being able to navigate to the same page, a location in the same page, what it does is that it says, oh, if you want to navigate home, I'm going to include the content of home HTML, right? And I'm just going to show you that. I'm not going to show you the content of profile or the content of the other. I'm just going to show you the content of home HTML. All right, so let's see how this works. Let's see if this works. Let's see. Let's go back. There it is. So, okay. Oh, it's already working, right? I came here, right? Notice that I went to HTML. I went HTML. That's what I typed, 001.html, right? I click on enter. It immediately takes me to the default because I never told it where I want to go, right? Notice that where did it take me? At /home. See that? If I hover over each one of these, look at the link down below. It says 001 HTML, meaning the same document, meaning I'm never going to leave this document, /details. You see that? So /details maps to what? To the details page, right? Right. So if I click on the details page, it takes me to the details page. If I click on the home, it takes me back to home, profile, details. It is providing me with the same functionality of navigating between pages, yes? But using a much better architecture, right, of centralizing the control in one single place, okay? First of all, that's one thing, which is a very good thing. The other thing here is that it's all being done in the same page. So it's a single page application, but provides the mechanisms of a multi-page application. So it allows you to break up your single page application into many little pages, right? Where you can put different features in different pages, right? In the home, what are we going to put in the home? Well, maybe we'll put here the search here, right? What are we going to put in the profiles? We'll put my favorites. I'll put it here, right? My favorites. Presumably, I can only see my favorites if I log in, but we don't have login yet, okay? And details, well, details, we should not be able to see the details unless I tell it that it's the details of a particular movie, right? I should be able to pass it. Yes?
Did you put the hashtag before the link in the buttons as well as the routing controller?
In the routing, you only have slash.
Oh, you only have the slash. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Right. In the pages, it has to have the hash, meaning what this tells the browser is that I am not leaving the page. I am navigating to a different portion of the same document. Okay. Then what the routing control does is that it parses the portion after the hash and says, okay. What it does is that it puts an event handler on the change of the hash. You know, on hash change, I want to Angular gets notified, says, oh, the hash changed. What do I need to do? What it does is this. It says if after the hash it has home, that's what I'm going to suck in, right? If after the hash is profiles, that's what I'm going to show. If the hash after the hash says details, that's what I'm going to show. Where am I going to show all that? I'm going to show it in the ng view, inside of the ng view. Make sense? Everybody okay? Did I lose anybody? We can backtrack and repeat this. Right? Anybody? Everybody okay? Okay to continue? All right. Well, this is a somewhat annoying, right? That I have to copy and paste this navigation, you know, across several pages. Instead, what I could do is put it somewhere in common, right? Either in a shared header, right? One easy thing that we could do is just take it out of here, right? Go back to 001 HTML, right? Actually, you know what? Let me leave that there. Let me leave that there, and just I'll make another experiment. How's that? I'll make another experiment. So I'll copy these two, and this will be 002, and this will be 002. Okay, so in this one, we just need to change this to 2. And let's see if we're still up and running. 2. And I can navigate, right? It still works. Everybody okay? Everybody good? All right. Okay, so let's see. What we could do here is that in the ng view, what we could do is instead put an inner div and make that the view. Make that the view, which is going to be dynamic, right? This is the content of this div will be dynamic. It will be either home, details, or profile, right? But what I want to share amongst all of them, what I want to share is all these links, right? Instead of having it copied across many pages, right? I'll just put it outside of the view. I'll put it outside of the view so that it'll render on all pages. So what this does, it says, this says I'll render 002, which will be something that is static plus something that is dynamic. Yes? Right? So this is static. This will show up on all pages, and this will be dynamic. It'll be either home or profile or details. Okay? Let's save that. Let's go back and refresh this. Oh, now it's appearing in 2 places, right? This is the one that is common, and this is the one that was still there, right? We took it away from where? From profiles. Yeah, we took it away from profiles, but we forgot to take it away from details and home. Let's go back there and fix that. So it's not in profile, it's in home. Let me remove that. Let me go to details and remove that. Remove that. I'll refresh. There it is. So now we have the navigation outside. Oop. Details. Let me refresh. Okay, there it is. It was cached. So details, profiles, and home. Everybody good? Everybody still okay? All right. So what are we going to put in home? So in home, we're going to put the search mechanism, right? The search mechanism. We're going to copy that. We're going to say, where do we have that? Let's go to home, right? Home. How was it? Let's see. We had a search, right? Where do we put that? We can go back here and copy from our last example. Let's see. We had this input field, right? We had this input field. I'll copy that. I'll copy it into here, right? And I'll put it in home. Where's home? Here's home. I'll paste it in there with an input group. Right? If I go home and I refresh, it's that, right? It's a search with a button at the end. Remember that? Right? Everybody okay? And how does this work? Let's see how it worked. If you remember, the input field was tied up with a controller, right? With a variable in the controller called title search. Remember that? Right? And then the button was tied to an event handler also in the controller called search title. Remember that? Right? Do we want to do that again? Or was everybody cool with that? or do you want to see that again?
I see it again.
You'd like to see it again? Okay. So I'm going to just throw this away. Throw it away, and it's there, right? So what we want to be able to do is first load that input field. We'll copy that from Bootstrap. Let's copy that from there. We go here. We go to, let's see, CSS, maybe components, button groups. So button groups, what button groups allows you to do is mix and match input fields with buttons, right? So put them together as if it were one single element. Like for instance, instead of these buttons, because they're right next to each other, notice how they look, right? They have rounded corners, right, on one of the edges, but they're flat on the other, so they're flush against each other, as opposed to these that are, single buttons. So what we want to be able to do is look for an input field that has that feature. Let's see, buttons, button groups. Where are you? Input groups. There we go. So we can mix and match labels with input fields. We can mix and match in different sizes, checkboxes. There they are. This is what we want, right? We want an input field with a button at the end. See that? I'm just going to copy it straight from here. There it is. I'm going to copy that. I'm just going to paste it here. What is it? It's just what? It's just a div, an outer div, right? It's an input field. The input field just says the type and the class, just to make it look prettier, right? And then the button is just a button, and that's it. That's all it is, and it doesn't do anything, right? Let me load home, right? If we load it, this button doesn't do anything for now. It doesn't do anything. I need to tie it to a controller in the back end. Yes? So let's tie that to the controller. I'm going to name the button. Just so that it's easy to read. This button, I'm going to tie it to the controller. It says ng click, and we'll tie it to an event handler called search on the controller. Yes? On the controller. Where is the controller? We don't have a controller for the home. Actually, we don't have any controllers whatsoever, right? In 001, there's no controllers whatsoever. Right, we just have the configuration of the routing, but routing allows us to say, right, and to tell that this particular page will be controlled by a particular controller. We can say that the controller for this page is home controller, and we need to declare that controller. We need to declare that controller, right? So let's declare that controller. And the way we declare the controller, we say app.controller, right? We give it a name, which is home controller, and we provide a function. So this controller only exists only for the home controller. Only when the home controller loads, that controller will exist, which can control the page. Yes? So if we do a console here, we say alert and say, welcome home. Notice that if we go to profile, it doesn't do anything, but when we go to home, we refresh, it doesn't work. What's going on? So do we have an error here? Error on the page? 02. Oh, you know what? I'm adding it to 001, but we're working with 002. Ugh. Take that out of the way. Sorry. This is in 002. Let me close that before I make that mistake again. It's in 002. So here's the controller, right, in 002, and I'm saying that my home page will be controlled by the home controller declared down here. Let's try it again. Refresh. There's my alert, right? That's my alert. And meaning that controller is only visible in my home. So if I go to profile and details, I don't have a controller. But if I go home, my controller says hello. Yes? Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. And what I want to do is that in my page, I have what? In my home page, where's home? Home, here. I have this search event handler, which I want to listen to, right? I want to, when I click on it, I need to notify my controller. Where's my controller? It's here, right? My controller, I want to notify it. I want to say, need my scope. Remember what scope was, right? Scope is what ties the controller with the UI, right? Scope dot the name of the function, right? So I'm going to remove this alert. I'm going to say hello. We're going to say hello from search. So this will only this will only run when I click on that button, right? So let's try that. Only when I click on the button, it says alert, hello from search. See that? So I've tied the button. I'm saying if the button is clicked, notify search, and it's declared right here, the function. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. So what do I need to search? I need to search the field, right? And the field, I'm going to name the field. I'm going to say that this field, I'm going to say ng model, meaning this is a variable. This is some object. This is going to be my search, my title. This is a title, right? This is the title, the search title. I'll call that search title. But by naming it here, I now have control over it in my controller, right? I can say add here scope search title. And so if I refresh and I type something and say go, I have it right there. See that? So I have access to whatever is in the field, right? So if I want to search for avatar, I click on go, and there it is. Hello from search avatar. See that? So I have that field in the control. The last piece is that I actually need to do the search, right? And for that, what do we use? We use that IMDb library, right? Right. So that library is where, if we go back and we go to IMDb, my API films, and we search for, it was way down here, right? It was way down here. Search by title. It's this one, right? And it had to be JSONP. Oh, what the heck? Stop it. Oh, it's my mouse. JSONP, and I'm looking for avatar, right? And I search. I want to copy that URL. Let me copy the URL. Copy link. So here we want to use the HTTP service to retrieve it, right? I'm going to say HTTP JSONP, the URL. It's that URL. And in the success, when it comes back, when the server comes back with data, I'm going to be notified here with the movies. And once I have the movies, I'm going to send them to the UI and say scope movies equals the movies that came back from the service. So now my client, my UI has the movies. Maybe we can do a console. We can display them here, movies. So let me go back to my page. I'm going to say refresh. I'm going to show the console down here. Here's the console. So if I search for Terminator and I say go, oh, actually, oh, what's going on? My field, blah blah blah. Wait a minute. Title, blah blah blah. On caught, IMDb. Resource, JSONP. Oh, you know what? I'm missing something. It's $HTTP JSONP. I think it's called JSONP callback. Where is it? There it is, callback. Yeah, at the end of the URL, when you're using JSONP, especially you have to, at the end, you have to say, you have to add this attribute, this parameter. And this is how Angular provides the name of the function that needs to be called when it comes back. So let's try it again. Refresh. There you go. Comes back with an object. It returns only one element because I believe in the URL we have hard-coded the URL to come back only with one element. Filter limit instead of one, I'll limit it to 10 movies. Also, the title, instead of having hard-coded to be avatar, I'm going to use the title in my search string, right? I'm going to say $scope dot, I think I called it search title. What is it? Is that the name I gave it? Search title. Search title. Let's see. So now I can search for Terminator. Let's say go. And I get 10 movies, of which some of them, let's see. This TV documentary controls James Cameron. Okay, so that looks like it's Terminator. Let's look at another one. This one. 3 women who meet in an anger management class. Let's look at that one. Almost 10 years have passed since the first cyborg. So it looks like, yes, it's returning correct data, right? And we want to render this, right? We want to render it. And the way we render it is going to the HTML, going home, and rendering it in a table. So let's render this as a table. Class table, striped. And yes.
So I'm getting an HTTP is not
$
defined.
HTTP?
Yeah.
From where? In the control?
In the console.
In the console?
So after I run it and then hit search.
Yeah. So did you declare it in the function?
Yeah.
Okay. So where are we? So in the home, right? We're going to iterate. We're going to say table row. So in the body of the table, we're going to say a table row. We're going to iterate ng repeat equal the movie in movies, where movies is what's coming from the controller, right? The controller is sending me those movies. So I'm going to iterate over that. And the table data, I'm going to display the movie title, okay, and the plot. Right? If I go back here and make this small, I go Terminator. Okay, there it is. So Terminator, there's a TV documentary, or if I want to have Avatar, it refreshes the whole thing and says, there it is, tomorrow never dies. Avatar. Okay, so it looks like it's working, right? So this is basically where we were previously. Everybody okay? Right? What I want to be able to do is add these to my favorites. So the way we do that is that we add an additional column at the end, right, with a button. And say that we want this is going to be class button success. That's going to make it green, and I want to have like a plus sign for this. So for this to be a plus sign, I'm going to go back to Bootstrap, and in Bootstrap I can go to components, and there I have several glyphicons that I can add here. Oops, if I go read again and I go to alien, we get the plus sign here, right? When we click on the plus sign, we want to add it to a favorites. Yes, I want to add it to a favorites. So that means that if I do an ng click, right, ng click, and say add to favorites, right, to favorites. Did I spell it right? Yeah. Okay. So in my controller, right, I'm going to create another event handler. I'm going to say scope dot add to favorite. That's a function that when I click on it, I want to know which movie you want to add, right? So I should pass the movie as an argument. You know, what movie are you adding as a favorite, correct? So if I go home, I should pass as an argument the actual movie that I'm adding, right? So if I say, I'm going to say movie, So that in my controller, right, I can say console log. This is the movie that I'm adding. Movie. This is a movie that I'm putting my favorites. I need a place to store these favorites. Right, I'm going to put it in an array var favorites. It's going to be at first it's going to be empty array, but I'm going to be adding it. I'm going to say the array push this movie, right? And let's display the favorites to see that indeed it's making it into the array. Make sense? All right. So let's see if that works. And let's show the console so we could see what's being displayed here. So if I search for Terminator, right, and we add this, notice that we have an array of one element, right? If I click another one here, it's an array of two elements, yes? So I've added these two from my Terminator search. I can go now to Alien. I love James Cameron movies. So I'll add that one. Notice that now I have three objects in my favorites. If I add another one here, now I have four items. So two from my Terminator search and two from my Alien search. Yes, correct. What I want to do now is maybe go to my profile page and display all my favorite movies. Right. Before we were displaying in the same page, correct? But the whole point of this is that we want to show different features in different pages, correct? Right? If I go to my profile, let's see my console. If I go, let me go to my console. So I have my array, right, of movies that I added to my favorite. When I go to my profile, right, obviously there's nothing there, right, because we haven't done anything in our profile, obviously. But when I go back to home, notice that my search is gone. My search is gone. And I have lost my favorite array. The array is gone. Why? Because the controller gets reinstantiated every time you navigate to the page. Remember when we were navigating, it was saying hello from home, hello, welcome home, welcome home, welcome home every time you navigate it, right? If this gets instantiated, if this function gets called again, everything gets thrown away. So, right? So we don't have state. We do not have state. Okay? Right? That's a big problem that we need to fix. We need to fix. Another thing is that the profile should also have its dedicated controller. This should have something similar to home, right? Something like this, like this table, right? Something like this that iterates over what? Iterates over the favorites, correct? Right? So it kind of these controllers somehow they need to talk to one another, right? They need to share data. Right? Somehow they need to share data, correct? So we're gonna change this a little bit so that they have dedicated controllers first of all, and second is that they can share data. Okay. So one of the things for this to be able to share data is to use a little bit the same mechanism that we were talking about earlier, where we centralize things, right? Instead of having this controller, owning, being responsible for actually getting the data, right? Instead of being this controller responsible for getting the data, it could be that other controllers want to get the data too, right? So instead of, right now, the access is only here, right? It's in this controller. A better design would be to centralize the access of the data into one central place so that any controller can access the data. You see that? All right? Okay. So we're going to rectify this design using what it's called a service layer, right? A service layer design. Okay. All right, so let's do that. Let's change this. O2, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to 3. So this is 003, and this is 003. And I'm going to close all the 2s because I don't want to change the wrong file. So 03 and 03. Okay. So what we're going to do is the event handler. Yes, that's part of the page, right? Right. This event handler, the button lives on the page, right? We can't move this away from here. This event handler also is part of the page. We can't do anything about that. It has to live in this controller, right? But the access to the data doesn't have to live here, right? Also, the management of the list of favorites also doesn't have to live here, right? This could all live in a centralized place, right? That can share the data amongst all controllers, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to 03. We're going to rip apart this stuff, and we're going to put it in a centralized place where all controllers can share this information, right? So to do that, we're going to go to Angular, and we're going to search for AngularJS factories. Okay. So we want to create a centralized place where we can put and store this data. Right, there it is. Factory. What the heck? Well, no, that's not it. All right, so we're going to centralize this. We're going to put it right here. It's going to be centralized right here. It's going to say app factory. App factory. I'm going to call it the movie service. Movie service. Right, and this is going to be shared amongst all controllers. All controllers are going to be able to see this, right? So I'm going to call this my movie service. Okay. So anything I put in here and I return, anything that I return from this function is going to be accessible to the controllers. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I like to be able to do is rip this apart. Just take it out of here. Right. Take it out of here. Put it in here, right? And put it inside of a function that can be reused, right? I'm going to say var search for movie, right? It's going to be a function that takes as argument the title, the search title, and in here I'm going to paste my JSON call. Okay? Yes, everybody okay? Also notice that instead of getting it from the scope, I'm passing as an argument the search title instead of the scope, because over here I don't have scope. I'm not tied to any one page, right? So I don't have access to the page. I need to be passed the title. I'm being passed the title as an argument. And notice that I can't send the movies to the page because, again, I'm not tied to any page. Instead, what I'm going to do is that instead of this being a function, right, that is declared here, right, somebody's going to pass me the function. Somebody's going to pass me the function as an argument, right? You're going to pass me the function, and that's how I'm going to notify you, right? That's how I'm going to notify you with the data. Your function, this function, actually lives as an argument. So you pass me the callback, and I'll call you back when it comes back. And what you do in your search, right? In your search, what you do is that you call the service. This server, the service is called movie service. So movie service, and the function is called what? Search for movie. Search for movie. We have to pass it the title, right? As an argument. It's inside of the scope.search title, right? And we're going to pass a function as an argument. That's the function. We're passing the function as an argument. This function will be called when the movies come back, and it will pass us the movie as a response, and we will send it to the UI. Yes? Because the controller is tied to the page, but not the service. The server doesn't know anything about a page. Okay. Now, this movie service, the way controllers see the service, right? The way the controllers actually see the service, this is not a global variable. The way they see it is just like scope is being injected And just like HTTP is being injected, I just have created a brand new service which is going to be injected. And it's going to be passed to me by the framework, right? All right, let's see if this blows up. Oh, one more thing. Right now, this function, this function here is the closest thing to that JavaScript has as being a private function. Okay, in Java and C#, you can declare functions to be, methods to be public, private, protected, right? There's no such thing in JavaScript, right? The closest thing that JavaScript has is declaring a function inside of another function, right? And you can't have visibility into things that are declared inside of a function in JavaScript. So these are the closest things to a private function, right? Also in JavaScript, you don't have interfaces, right? Like you have in Java or in C#, right? You have an interface. What's an interface? It's just a declaration of a whole bunch of functions, right? That's all it is. And then a class implements those interfaces, correct? Right? In Java, and you can do that in C# as well. So the closest thing that JavaScript has is to return here a map functions. Return, right? That the only way that you can access this function is through an object I am going to return to you, right? So what do I return? An object. So movie service returns an object. This returns an object. The object has inside an attribute called search for movies, which is this one, which happens to be what? A function, right? Happens to be this function that takes as argument. So this happens to be that function that takes as argument two things. One is the title, right? And the other thing that takes as argument is the function. You see that? Okay, let's try it. See if this blows up. So hopefully this will work exactly the same way that it's been working. Okay, let's see. So this is, let's try avatar. Okay, that seemed to work. All right, that's still working. So, okay, so yeah, we got it to work. All right, this is working exactly the way we had it working. The only thing we did really is put an additional abstraction layer. That's all we did, right? We took what was in here and we moved it elsewhere. That's all we did. Yes? The only reason we did that is that now this thing is reusable. Instead of living inside of this controller and not be reusable, now that it lives outside, it can be shared among several controllers. Yes? Right, that's the only reason we did that. It's a very common technique in Angular, right? Where you abstract. Well, it's even a bad practice, right? It's a very bad practice to have direct access to a service from a controller, right? If you have HTTP here, where you are directly accessing the data, that's considered to be a bad practice, a bad design, right? Typically, you want to create this abstraction layer in between that hides this from the controller. Okay. It's all about abstractions, and we're human beings, and we're all very good at we are very our species thrives on abstractions, right? All right, so we did that. Let's now abstract this piece, the adding of the favorites, right? So what we're going to do here is this array, instead of living here, we're going to move it out of here, right? And we're going to put it in the service, right? So that now this service could be shared with other controllers, and they can now see the favorites. Okay, so we're gonna create a function here that adds the movie to the favorites, right? So we're gonna have here var add to favorites equal function. Here's a movie, and it'll push it. It'll push it, right? And then make this available through the API. Right? Now over here, the controller is gonna do what? It's gonna use the movie service dot add to favorites, and it's gonna pass movie. Okay? Right? All right. That's all we did. What we did is just push all this functionality down one layer. Okay, one layer. That's all we did. Now we can go here and say, hey controller, hey profile controller, you have your own controller, right? You have your own controller. You have the profile controller, right? We can say profile controller app dot controller profile controller is a function, right? Takes the scope, takes a, and now it has the movie service. We can put pass it the movie service, from which it will be able to retrieve the favorites. Okay. Right. So from here I can say, hey, movie service, give me the favorites. Right. Give me the favorites. So for instance, I want to do console.log. I want to say movie service, get me the favorites. Get favorites. Right. Actually, we don't have that function, but we can very easily create it here. We can say var get favorites is a function that's just going to do what? It's just going to return that array, favorites, and we're going to make it available. Okay. Now, when we navigate to the profile controller, hopefully we'll get the favorites. Let's try it. Is this 3? Yes. So let's refresh and let's look at the console. So console, and let's clear console clear. Okay. So let's search for Terminator, and we add this is a favorite. That's a favorite. So all these are being favorites. You notice that they're being added to this. See that? They're all being added. Okay. Now we're going to clear this, and we're going to navigate to the profile. When we go to profile, it didn't work. Why?
Spelled service wrong.
Spell service wrong? Movie ser. Oh, thank you. Movie serve. No, that doesn't work. Service. Let's try it again. Thank you. Get favorites. Yeah, let's reload. Go to home. Right, let's try this again. Titanic. All right, so let's clear this. Let's add. So we're favorite. Okay. We have those 3, and hopefully now that when we go to, I'm going to clear that. I'm going to profile. It still didn't work. What's going on? Refresh. I did refresh it, didn't I? Let me see. Profile controller. Profile. Did I spell this correctly? Profile controller. App controller, blah, 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 scope, yada, yada, yada. Is this being instantiated, actually? Let me see, console.log. Okay. Refresh, profile. Looks like it's not even being instantiated. Why are you not being instantiated? 3.js, 3 HTML. Hate computers. Have I told you how much I hate computers? There they are. Okay, so it is an empty array, right? Right now it's an empty array. Let me go to home. All right, let's add a couple there. Oops. Blah, blah, blah. It's not defined. In 00329, line 29. Movie service factory. Oh, wait, how does this work before then? Uh-oh. How was this working before? Should have complained before. Okay, it works. Okay, Avatar 2. Oops, is not being invoked. Why is this not being invoked? Well, let me go to profile. Okay, I went to profile, right? Must be that I'm not printing out. I went to the profile and I have those objects I added, right? Just to make sure, I'm going to refresh. Let me go home. Notice that the profile is empty. If I go to profile, there's nothing there, right? If I go to home, I go to avatar, right? And I add 1, 2, another one. So I added 3. I'm going to go to profile. There's a 3. They're the 3 objects that I added. Now the profile can display them, right? The controller the profile can display, because what did I do with it when I got it back from the controller? Where is it? The profile controller. What am I doing? Oh, I need to send it to the UI, right? I need to send it to the UI. I'm gonna say $ scope favorites is equal to this, right? Now in the profile, I can iterate over favorites, right? I can go to profile, I can iterate over this. I can say H2 favorites, right? And I can say table, class, table, striped. I can say, what am I going to say? T-body, table row, and I'm going to say ng repeat of my favorite in favorites, right? And in here, I'm going to say TD, I'm going to have the title of my favorite movie plus the plot of my favorite movie. Oh, wait, fav dot title and favorite dot plot, right? So if I go home and I go avatar, first search for a couple of movies there, so 1 and 2, and then search for Terminator and search for and add another 2, right? These 2 and that one and that one. Now if I go to profile, I have the 4 objects, the 4 movies that I added. You see that, right? So we have successfully, split up, right? Everything that was working before in one single page, we have split it up those into 2 separate pages. Another one that might be interesting is the details, right? It makes no sense to go to notice that if I go to details, go back to profiles, I still have my favorites, right? So it doesn't forget, right? Anything that I store in that singleton movie service, it has state. It maintains. It remembers that. Okay, throughout your session. If I refresh the page, everything goes away. Obviously, right? In the details, what I might want to do is that if I click on the title of a favorite movie, I would like to see the details, as in, what are the who's the director, what year, what ratings, what reviews, locations, whatever, right? So that looks like I would like to show only one details of one particular movie, right? So I should be able to pass like an argument on what movie am I talking about, which one am I talking about. So let's move that into a separate page. So 4 and 4. 4 and 4. And let's open those. So 4 here. Let's go to 4 here. So I like to pass along like some kind of ID or some kind of which movie do I want to show the details for, right? So the details, I kind of want like an argument, like an index, right? Which movie are you talking about, right? So in the URL, I would like to pass an argument saying, oh, I want the details of this particular movie, right? I don't want the details of all the movies. I just want that particular movie. So I can create a controller also for the details. Right? Let's create a controller for the details. So this is the details controller, which will control the details page. So let's create that. So this is very similar. So this will be the details controller that has the same thing: scope, HTTP, and the movie service, right? So it has all the movies. So I have all the favorites, right? I have all the favorites. Plus, I would like that index that was being passed to me as an argument, right? I would like that argument. That argument is part of the routing mechanism, right? That's part of the routing mechanism. So let's look at the documentation for that. AngularJS routing parameters. All right, so route params. It's called route params, and the way you access it is by receiving this as part of your controller. As part of your controller, you're passed along all the parameters, right, that would be in the URL. Now you can use that route params, right, to come up with an index, right? So you can say the index of the movie that you want is in the route params, and the parameter name is whatever you called it. What do we call it? Index, right? That's the name of the parameter. So we can say route params index. I'm going to copy it locally. I have the index, right? Now I have the favorites. I have the index. So favorites is what? The array of all my favorites, yes? And what is index? Is that the particular, right? The particular movie of that I want to display the details for, yes? So I'm going to say that the details, right? The movie, the actual movie of which I want the detail is going to be the favorites sub-index. Right? I only want that movie, right? I only want that movie, so that in my details, I can just print out the movie. I can say movie, right, which is being sent to me as an argument, right? Right. So that if we go back here, right? If I go back here and I refresh, I go to 4. I go to 4.html. Right, and I search again avatar. Right, and I have this one and that one and that one, right? And then I go to details. Now, notice that details is expecting a URL. Notice that details, right, is expecting a URL that has this parameter, that has this pattern, right? /details /something, right? When I clicked on details, notice that this used to work, right? Why is it not working anymore? Because the URL for this is just what? /details. Yes? It's not /details /something, right? So what the routing controller says is, hey, I don't know that pattern /details. I know /details /something, but I don't know /details, right? So if I actually type it here and I say details /0, there it is, right? This worked. It navigates to the details page. It parses that 0, right? And it uses this as an index into the favorites array, right? If I say 1, another movie. You see that? Right? You see that? Right? So if it's 0, right? Or if it's 1, that works. No, I think I only added 2 movies, right? Did I add a third movie? I forget. So if I go to 2, yes, I did add a third movie. Did I add a 4th movie? I don't think so. So there was nothing there. It's undefined, so there's nothing there, right? So that page is basically what in the home, in the details, I want to display not only I want to display maybe the title, right? And maybe in a separate paragraph, I want to display maybe movie, the plot, right? And maybe this in H2 like this, right? And maybe the title here. Right. So let me go real quick. So if we go to avatar and I add a couple, this one, that one, that one, and that one, and I go to details. Well, details is not going to work, right? Basically, what I want like to be able to do is link this to the details, which we haven't done. If I go to details /1, notice that says avatar, right? If I go to 0, it shows The Last Airbender. If I go to 2, it shows something else. You see that? Right? So what I really want to do is when I go to profiles, if I link this, I need to create these links that say what? /details /0, /details /1, /details /2, and it will navigate to the details page and show me the correct movie. Make sense? All right, we'll continue this next Tuesday. Thank you.
Save it.
Wait. Is it still recording?
Yeah.